All right, this is Isaac from Hunger Smash Fitness, and I'm back again with Dr. VanHofwegan, and we're just going to talk about, if anyone had any interest in becoming an orthopedic surgeon, what his thoughts might be on that. So,
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, take it away.
Sure. I think a lot of people, they start thinking about the process of medicine and they start to evaluate whether they want to be a doctor or not. And I think in and of itself, that decision takes a certain level of commitment and willingness because you have to sit down and assess, like, okay, I'm going to need to work my tail off starting really in high school.
Yeah.
Although even if you screw around in high school, that doesn't sink your ship necessarily. You could turn it around in college, but once you get to college, you better be pretty willing to have a steady work ethic and achieve at a pretty high level. And just making that decision of, okay, I'm going to go to med school, that's going to require a certain threshold GPA, which is, I've heard some of the kids that I've talked to recently, and they've said that having 3.5 is not necessarily good enough. So we're talking 3.7s, 3.8s, 3.9s. If you're amazing, you get a 4.0, you just get it all the way through. And then that's really one piece of the puzzle. And then there's sort of the prerequisites that you have to take when you're in college. And many of those, the prerequisites, I think, have changed a little bit since I went to med school, but at least there was a requirement for physics and chemistry and biology and just proving that you can deal with the subject matter.
Right.
I will tell you, as a previous biology and chemistry double major, that I believe I eclipsed my entire undergrad knowledge when I got into med school in roughly 2 weeks. So none of that. That's my roundabout way of saying, don't choose your major in college on the basis of what you think you might sort of get you ahead during med school. It's not going to do it. You're going to get there and you're going to feel like you're drinking from a fire hose, and it will. And everybody feels the same way, regardless of what their undergrad major was.
Yeah.
So I liked it because of that. I like to tell people, yes, of course you need your prerequisites. They're required. Go do well in your prerequisites. Come to grips with how you're going to deal with that subject matter, but also do something fun or useful or potentially, like, I always thought the best med students were engineers, right? And an engineering degree, they're algorithmic. They've been taught to think. They're algorithmic in their thinking process. They've been taught to basically take spurious information and be able to bring that to the side and then and pursue the solution of choice for a particular problem. I think that skill was amazing. It just made they got really good grades, and they were great to talk to as far as, like, thinking about medical problems. Also, if heaven forbid you didn't get into med school, then you're already an engineer.
Engineering's
you
a good
have something
fallback.
that's useful, and you can go immediately into getting a job. And it's a
might even be able to make more money.
It's a great job.
as
You'll
an
definitely
engineer.
make more money right away. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way that I've approached answering that question or offering that bit of advice. I also think that your undergrad is a great time to explore other disciplines, and picking up a language is great. You don't have to. I just want to emphasize: don't be a health sciences pre-med major. Don't do that. Get the requirements. Do something else. You're going to get plenty of science when you get to med school. Then part of getting in med school is taking your medical college admission test. That too has changed format since I've gone through. It changed. My format changed from when many of my business partners, when they were going through med school. So it's a constantly reforming test. You got to play the game on that. You got to take your practice exams. You got to achieve high on that. Just really no way around it. And then and other people say that I'm going to differentiate myself on the basis of various research, or I'm going to have these experiences, or I'm going to make myself look good. I will tell you, everybody does that. There's really no differentiation anymore. I went to go work in the Peace Corps for 2 years. Well, great, you worked in the Peace. Everybody does that. You get to med school, you find that you're like among.
You're just one of the many.
You're just one of the many. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing differentiate. There's nothing that really differentiates you. On the other hand, you could make the argument that this is the selection cohort, that these people got selected because they did that. So
Yeah.
So just enjoy your undergrad, not to the detriment of your grades, and work hard and achieve high. That would be my. If you're going to go to med school, this is what you need to do.
Awesome. What do you think about doing like study abroad, where you go and because I know one of my friends, he's interested in physical therapy actually, but he went to Uganda and Burundi for I think about 8 weeks total. And he followed around a physical therapist for the time, and then for part of it ended up following around some surgeons, and so he got to watch a bunch of surgeries, and so and he said especially in Burundi that was very eye-opening, because he said, there's open windows with, some of them had screens, some of them didn't. There's construction next door, so there's construction dust on top of everything.
Flies.
There's flies all over, and he said you're bringing someone in. He said, like, they didn't have anesthesia. Yeah, he said they didn't have anesthesia. They had lidocaine, but they would mix it with water or something like that. They'd water it down. And so he said these people are wide awake, partly numb, and getting cut on. And he said that was extremely eye-opening.
Some people are really tough.
Because
Americans are not.
Especially in, I was going to say, especially in third world countries, like, people would be horrified if anything like that happened here.
Well,
I mean, the hospital would be shut down.
Because, and there, I mean, it's in some ways it's torture, but if your alternative is
death,
I'm going to die because I have an incarcerated gangrenous hernia. Okay.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
This is my choice.
Yeah.
I do think there's tremendous value in going abroad. I certainly went abroad. It was eye-opening. I think the major, it gave me something to write about on my personal statement.
For your thesis.
Yeah, my personal statement for my entrance exam. I think the main thing that I gained from that was not necessarily, it didn't necessarily differentiate me in anybody else's eyes. I think that it was personally extremely edifying.
Yeah.
Extremely formative in changing my perspective on, as your friend experienced.
Yeah.
What can a human being actually tolerate?
Apparently quite a bit.
It's much more than you think.
Yeah.
And we do not, in the United States of America, we do not have any understanding of what that is. We have almost zero understanding. And just the way that things happen, how privileged we really are.
Yeah.
How our complaints really in the rest of the world really don't hold a lot of water. It's fairly comical, in fact. Which is,
Well, I know even traveling, because with the military, got to go to Thailand and South Korea and Dubai, Bahrain. Some of them are wealthier spots, and some of them are not as wealthy. And it was interesting seeing just how people live every day in a lot of those places, and it gives you an entirely different appreciation for what we have in the States. I definitely think everyone should do it. Yeah, more for their personal experience, I think. But
it does lend you to come, as it changes your perspective, you come back to the United States and you feel extremely grateful.
Yeah.
For the privileges that we do have. It changes your perspective there, and that I'd say was most formative.
Yeah. I think my only experience with rough healthcare or whatever is I sliced my finger open and had to get 5 stitches in here. It was in the military, and so it was on a weekend, and it was like a holiday weekend, and so for some reason the anesthesiologist wasn't there or whatever, so they didn't have anyone certified in numbing it, so they were like, well, we can give you stitches. We just can't numb it beforehand, apparently. So I agreed to that and ended up having 7 corpsmen standing around me while they're doing stitches. Found out later, none of them had actually given stitches on, an actual person before. So that's why there were 7 of them, because they were figuring it out, a group thing. So that was my only experience. And I thought it was pretty tough until I started hearing about, all of Nick's stories of surgeries in Burundi and everything. I was like, I would not have my leg amputated after 1 shot of watered down lidocaine. Like, yeah, I don't know. That is a whole other level. Yeah.
Whole different level of commitment for sure.
Oh,
I think as far as getting back to your question about orthopedics, I think once you get to medical school, I think it becomes apparent as the first 2 years have traditionally been dedicated to studying, and we call it boards before wards. So the first 2 years have been traditionally in the books and in classroom, and then you get to the wards and you have a chance to interact with patients on a more or less meaningful way. Less, really. Yeah. But that's appropriate as well, because you're dangerous at that point. And so I guess you kind of, as you get to the wards, you kind of find the people that you associate with more. You kind of you feel like, okay, I either am like these people or I would like to be like these people. Yeah. And so you decide that, and there's something rather organic about it. And I think my dad had some really good advice for me as I was going through that process. He said, and he actually said this about finding my spouse too. He said, take the worst things that you can imagine about that particular specialty.
Is your wife going to want to hear this?
She is, because she made the cut. She made the cut.
Good.
And so amplify that. Put a microphone in front of those bad things, and then decide if you can live with that. Because the good things become less prominent, and the bad things become more prominent over time. And I thought that was sage. That's wisdom. And he's had life experience to reflect back on that, and that was helpful, because I looked at orthopedics and I said, well, as we kind of discussed a little bit before, I don't like being bored, and so I need to have more variability than just clinical medicine. I need to have surgical medicine. I kind of like to take call if it's not between the hours of 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. There's variability in that process that was very attractive to me. And the bad things about taking call from 1 a.m. to 4 a.m., you don't do it very often. So it becomes more prominent, but is it still tolerable? The answer is it's still tolerable. Yeah. Some of the harder things, I'd say like, I couldn't do pediatric orthopedics because I have a hard time with the genetic defects that are devastating for children. And so that to me was one of the no kind of things within the discipline of orthopedics. When you start considering other things like internal medicine, the whole thing was no. I'm not going to do inpatient medicine. I'm not going to do just clinic all the time. What about other surgery? With all due respect to my general surgery colleagues, they deal with the stool-forming organs. Yeah. I did not want to do that.
I'll see if I have Dr. Fredette on or something sometime.
Oh, I mean, he's a wonderful guy.
He might have some interesting stories.
Absolutely necessary. But I just couldn't do what he does.
I couldn't do it.
No. In urology, you have to have a tremendously sharp sense of humor. So, and I just couldn't do that. So yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Oh man. Interesting. No, I think those are wonderful words of advice there.
Well, there are pearls and rat droppings in any bit of advice, and it'll be up to the viewer to figure out which one that is.
which one that it holds for them.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, anything else to add to that, or you think?
Yeah, I'm hopeful that that's at least a little bit helpful.
Yeah, I think it was definitely. yeah, if you have anything else that you want to ask him, feel free to comment it down below, and we can try and, like I said, try and bring him on again at a later date, or try and bring on some other orthopedic surgeons, or we'll see what we can wrangle up for the channel here. But yeah, well, thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Dr. VanHofwegan, and yeah, we will look forward to having you on again at some point or working something out. But anyway, so this is Isaac from Hunger Smash Fitness with Dr. VanHofwegan, and just remember to always improve that 1%.